dash on the car lit up like a Christmas tree with all these like warning, like as everything's gonna blow up. So I turned it off again and it was just dead again. That's definitely the wheel bearing gone. Now it had a few problems by this point. Surely we've used up all our problem bad luck and we'll be okay after this. Well, 30 kilometers out of Bemigar, the water in the fuel filter light came on. What actually happened is all this had started cracking through there. So at this point I was just like, I swear, like, just get me home, get me out of here. That was... Well, we finally did it. The big Cape York trip that people have been telling me to do for years and I've been wanting to do since I got into four-wheel driving. Australia's sort of big, iconic four-wheel drive destination, the Cape York, up far north Queensland. There is a full series on that coming on YouTube very soon. I feel like it'll probably start about a week or so after this video comes out, so stay tuned for that. But before we start the videos of the actual trip, thought I'd sit down and do a bit of a chat about a few car problems I had on the way up and while I was up there, because I know that everyone likes to hear about all my car problems. Plus I do like to share it. I like to be honest about what happens with this car and various things. And I did learn a very important lesson up there in regards to water in the fuel, because I did get some water in the fuel and I felt like if it weren't for a couple of things then I definitely would have wrecked my engine. Well, fuel pump, injectors, very costly thing that it would have been, but I luckily got out of it. I definitely did seem to have a series of unfortunate events sort of as I was getting ready to go, and then on the way up, and then while I was up there. It was one of the main problems was it was a very last, like everything I do, it was a very last minute trip. I basically decided about 4 or 5 days before we left that we're going to do a Cape York trip, which is about a 6,000-7,000 kilometer trip, and some very rough and remote stuff. So probably one first lesson I learned was to maybe not do that next time. Spend a couple of weeks sort of getting your car ready and refreshing and renewing everything. But we got there, we made it back. But yeah, it was a little bit rushed in that aspect. Okay, I'll just start from the start and work through each problem I had as we went. Now, as I said, it was a very last minute planned trip. And I just got these new lights, they're ARB Solaces. And basically in the days leading up to it, where I was rushing around trying to get all my prep ready and food and car and plan and everything else like that, because I had no idea what was going on, we did try and wire up these lights. Now, these Navaras are a bit of a pain in the butt to wire because they are reverse. So instead of everything being positively wired in the car, it's all negatively wired. And they're also worked out, they're very, very sensitive. So you basically touch a wire, I'm horrendous with wiring and electrics, but touch a wire in the wrong spot and you blow your headlight module, because obviously with your spotlights, you're trying to wire them up into your high beam, into your headlights and stuff like that. So when we're doing them, touched the wire in the wrong spot and blew the headlight module, which meant that I had no high beam and my low beam was reversed, which wasn't a big deal. It was just a bit of a painful, stressful thing right before. It was like the day before I was going to leave or something, all that happened. And it basically means you need to replace your whole electrical module up in the engine bay there. I forget what it's called, the IPDM or something, I think it is, independent something module. This was on a Saturday, I think it was, and I was leaving on a Sunday, so I couldn't get one off Nissan in time. It's about a $200 part. It meant that I was going to go to Cape York and back with only low beam and it being reversed. So when I was on high beam, I was actually on low beam, plus I was going to have no spotties. So I asked around a bit. I got a mate at Coffs Nissan and Ironman dealership there. I asked if they happened to have any that I could pick up on the weekend on the way through. And massive thanks to James there, because he actually pulled the module out of their work Navara to put it in my Navara, so I actually had working low beam and high beam on the way up there. That was the first thing that happened. It wasn't a major deal, it was just a little bit of running around and organising and that, trying to get that fixed the day before I left and then fixing it on the way up there. So after that, we're all good. Now it's a massive drive up to Cairns where we are from Port Macquarie. It's about 2,500 Ks. You're looking about 3 days on the road. I think it was the end of the second day up near Mackay, going down the highway about dinner time, and noticed that I had some lights pop up on the dash. It was my ABS sensor lights. So immediately, like, had music going, immediately sort of slowed down, turned the music off, and I could hear a whooshing noise coming from the front of the car. And my first thought being that I could hear a noise coming from the front and that those lights came up was a wheel bearing. A wheel bearing had just collapsed on the highway. So I pulled up, jacked the front drivers up. It was all fine. Then I jacked the front passenger up, and it was loose as anything. It was wobbling all over the place. That's definitely the wheel bearing gone. That's us done for the day. Oh, it's so sticky as well. You don't want to drive that car anymore. That's very dangerous. About 100 kilometers. About 100 kilometers south of Mackay, 115, a little town on the beach, Clareville. I feel like it's Clareville.
Yeah, it's Clareville.
Is it Clareville?
I think so.
You don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just heard you saying that to the people when you were calling them.
But yeah, actually not a bad spot here. We're in a little park, there's toilets, and we're actually right on the edge of the beach. But that's the start of the Cape York trip. That's probably where it comes down to a bit of my mistake with my last minute trip prep. The car was sort of checked over, but that wheel bearing was obviously missed, or it's just there was no premature signs, and just that like big couple of days on the highway had just been its final straw. The thing with the wheel bearings in the front of these, and like with a lot of modern utes and that, is they're a sealed unit, so you can't actually service the wheel bearing. You can't re-grease it or open it up and check it or anything. It's just a complete hub replacement. And which is one of the reasons why I hadn't replaced done anything in the front wheel bearings yet, because they say sort of just to leave it, but I probably won't keep doing that. And it's like the part from Nissan is very expensive. I swear from memory it's like $800 or $900. But I've worked out now you can actually get cheaper ones from Burson's for like a bit over 300, might be 350 or something. So given the sort of driving I do, I just think I'll replace those entire hub and bearing setup every 40 or 50,000 Ks. With the new car warranty with Nissan, you also get roadside assistance. So I called roadside assistance up there, and they will tow you to the closest Nissan dealer, which from where I was is about 110 Ks or so north to Mackay. Got the car towed to Nissan the next day, about lunchtime, until the tow truck driver got there. I'd started making some calls around that morning and no hub assemblies in town. The best we were looking at doing was getting one overnight. There was a hub assembly, a Nissan one in Brisbane, and then Burson's had one in Brisbane as well. So I got it to Nissan, they obviously checked it over and confirmed that the wheel bearing had collapsed, so it was a complete hub replacement. Started making phone calls to get that hub from Brisbane on a truck straight up to Mackay. I will say Mackay Nissan there was extremely helpful, even though like they were very busy and had lots going on. They basically got me straight in, sorted it straight out, and got that part ordered the day I was there, so we could hopefully get it the next day. And I also ordered that one from Burson's as well, because I was like, we'll get that other front one checked, because if there's any free play or like anything in that at all, we'll just replace that, or I'll just take it with me as a spare. So at least to have a spare hub assembly up the Cape if one is to collapse, because that's one of the things up there. There's not, once you're north of Cairns, parts are starting to look very slim for you. Now, I did have a mate up there, Aaron, from Remote Touring Solutions, I think it is. I'll pop his Instagram or whatever up there. He was very helpful as well while we were in town. So once I got my car to Nissan, we got a lift over to his, and he lent me their work car. So Kai and I could get around town for the Arvo on the next morning, while hopefully those two hub assemblies came overnight. And he'd organised the other one from Burson's for me as well. It actually ended up being a pretty nice time in Mackay. They've got a town like little water park there, so basically went there for the Arvo on the next morning, and it was good after we'd just done 2 big days on the highway to have a day sort of there to chill out. Now, thankfully, the next day, both parts did arrive. So Nissan got that one straight in when it arrived around lunchtime, a bit after, I think it was after lunch they did it. And I got them to check the other one, and they said there was a little bit of movement in the other one. So I was like, well, I'm just going to replace that one too with the Bursons one. So I went over to Aaron's work. So it was about 4 or 5 o'clock by this time. So at the end of the day there, they replaced my other one for me. So massive thanks to him. And then, yeah, it was about 5:30 or something in the Arvo by that time. And then we just took off down the highway. And I think we did like 5 or 6 hours. We pulled up north of Townsville that night about midnight. And actually, while we're in Mackay, I want to say massive thanks again, because I had so many people help me out while I was there, to Shannon and Richard, who have a little drifter set up there in their back shed. They're friends of Luke and that. They let me stay at theirs. Kai and I stay at theirs for the night, so it ended up being not too bad at all. We had somewhere to stay. We had a car to drive around, and then I had 2 fresh hub assemblies in the front. And we took off again. So I'd say the lesson learnt for me there, given what I do, I think a lot of people don't sort of forget this and don't realise this. Like, this car gets flogged on every hard track across Australia constantly, like nearly every weekend. Every school holidays, kind of off big trips. You know, like a few months ago, we're down flogging across all the tracks of Victorian High Country. In between that, we're at Lithgow, we're out Coffs Harbour. You know, we're out Georges Junction, like local trips all over the place. Then we're back up the Cape again, you know, all within a few months, just thousands of kilometres off road. So for me, I just really need to just be on top of replacing things regularly. You know, things like wheel bearings are going to wear out when you're running bigger tyres and you're doing the amount of mud and water and tough tracks that I do. So I'd say I'll probably just replace those hub assemblies every 40 to 50,000 Ks, somewhere in there. Just spend $1,000, get those couple new Bursons one. They're like an hour each, 45 minutes to put in, so it's not a massive amount of labour or anything. So we got up to Cairns all good. Actually, one real nice place we stopped on the way was Babinda Boulders. That was a really nice place before we came to Cairns. We stayed there the night. I mean, didn't stay there the night. We had to swim there for the Arvo and stuff. Then we went into Cairns, did some last minute groceries and camped up north of Cairns that night. First track of the trip was the Creb track in the wet, which was insanity. That was the wettest, slipperiest track I've ever done in my life. And I see why there are so many warnings about that place in the wet. And then the next day, the next problem arose with my, is that the way you say it? Arose with my car. Started hearing some bad, like, sort of squeaking / rubbing under the bonnet. Well, in the front end of the car. So I popped the bonnet, and I'll show you because I haven't actually had this repaired yet. This is booked in for next week at the Smash Repairer. You can see here my incredible mechanical work to fix it up. Tied a spanner on there. What actually happened is all this had started cracking through there. So you can see, like, that started cracking up there. These ones next to it started cracking. Down in, it's very hard to see this, but down in there's a big crack through that whole thing there, and I'll show you. So up under these, like, this is all cracking, big cracks through all that, which is why I put that there, just to sort of hold it together. So that sort of created a fair bit of stress for me when I've got all this, like, stuff through here all cracking under the bonnet. Rang the Smash Repair I use and showed him some pictures and that. He said, like, you know, it's got to get a whole lot worse before it's going to actually create any problems. Should be fine, but it's just up the Cape. It's so rough and that many corrugations. That, like, it did get worse while I was up there, but obviously I made it back. It was all good. It's just a whole heap of stress. So what we think happened, there's a couple of things that have led to this. This is where a snorkel is. So obviously this snorkel, there's a decent amount cut out here to get this snorkel in. So obviously you're sacrificing structural integrity of this through here a bit when you're doing that. And then what had happened in the months leading up to it, one was on Army Trail in Coffs. There was another one as well. This snorkel took a couple of really big hits there on banks, like big bangs, which definitely would have stressed that area out. The good thing, if it was a plastic snorkel, I'd say it would have caved it in, but thankfully the stainless snorkels are strong. But I'd say that stressed that area out a bit. So that's one contributing factor / possibility. And then the other one is this bull bar got bent a fair while back now. You can see there where I was smashing on the panel, because it basically what happened is it got we worked out it got bent winching. It sort of pulled itself forward over itself a bit and pulled these up into it. So I ended up loosening all the bolts and dropping this down to create that gap there. But it had been sort of smacking there for quite a while, and I'd say that that definitely has added to the stress on this area through here. And then what we ended up working out after speaking with Ironman in Coffs Harbour, they had a look over it and they said it's missing the pinning bolts, they called it, which are two big bolts that hold it in place. And they said without those two big pinning bolts, they will bend and move themselves, and it bent the brackets and stuff in there. That's what they reckon. So whether they were never put there, whether they came loose, I don't know what's happened. I don't want to say exactly what happened, but that's what they had to say about it. So there's a couple of big repairs I got coming up. This is going in next week to get all this pulled out, get this plated and welded up through there at the Smash Repairs in Wauchope. And we're going to organise a new bull bar for it as well. So we're going to probably put another Ironman one on, I reckon, just because I really do like the look of them. Pull that off, put a new one on that's not all bent, and obviously I'll smash this one around a bit now, and we'll obviously make sure the new one's pinned so it's not going to move at all again. But yeah, I just don't really want a bent bull bar in there and then, you know, I start stressing things and more cracking and all that sort of stuff. So definitely need to get that fixed up and replaced too. Now, it had a few problems by this point. Surely we've used up all our problem bad luck and we'll be okay after this. Well, 30 kilometres out of Bemiga, the water in the fuel filter light came on. Bemiga does have a couple of small mechanics in town there and a bit of a parts shop. So I took it there. Now, you know, here's more of my idiotic mistakes. I'd had both fuel filters replaced not long before that trip. And because I got the two fuel filters on there, like, it's never been an issue. And I don't know, I just didn't have a spare fuel filter with me. So anyways, there's another big lesson I've learned. Carry a spare fuel filters or both spare fuel filters when you have the two of them there. And of course, the shop in town didn't have a fuel filter for my car. I do have the two fuel filters for this exact reason, to protect your engine and water and fuel contaminants. So I got the fuel manager there, the secondary one, and there's the factory fuel filter. It goes through that first, and we couldn't see any water in the bottom of that. Now, we drained both of them out, and there was some water in them. There's actually water in both of them. It was like dirty water. I took some videos or pictures of it, so I'll put that up here, but you can see it because we put in plastic containers, and because they're different densities or whatever they are, different something. Like the water and diesel will sit separate to each other. The water will sit on the bottom, so water's heavier than diesel. So it sits down the bottom in, like, you see it, like big circles and bubbles and that. So both of them had dirty water in them. It wasn't a massive amount, but, you know, ideally you definitely don't want that much water in there. Drained them out, cleaned it up, didn't have spare. I was like, you know, hopefully just a bit of water in there that I got in somehow. Keep going, that's all of it out. The next day, the water and fuel filter light came on again. So how it works is, in your factory fuel filter, the bottom plug has two metal pins in it that sit down the bottom because water sinks. And I think how it works is once they connect, so once they get an electric shock or resistance or whatever is between the two pins, it sends the light through because water will conduct electricity but diesel won't, I think is how it works. So that's how that sensor system works. But yeah, it'll come on again. So I drained them out again. And I basically pulled the fuel line off and pumped like a heap of fuel out into my jerry can. So I'd pumped like 20 litres out just to try and clear like any crap out that was in the tank. Basically it was just like a repeat. Drain those two filters a heap of times while we're up there. Then when we're coming back down in one of the towns, I think it was Cohen, they had some Fuel Doctor there, which is probably another thing I'll carry. Fuel Doctor is like a liquid you tip in the tank, which makes the water burn off. It's able to burn off through your injectors and stuff then, through your fuel system. Because water Your fuel pump and your injectors are very, very finely tuned to diesel, and anything that's not diesel, aka water, just like ruptures the whole system. And just, yeah, that's the first two things that are going to go if you got water in your fuel: injectors and fuel pump, which are both extremely expensive parts. You know, you're talking thousands and thousands, not a few hundred. So it's just like a constant stress where this light kept popping up for the first few days after, until it eventually stopped when it obviously just cleared the water out of the system. When we came back down, I wanted to do a couple more tracks like Old Coach Road on the way back down, but with the cracking and with the car kept picking up water, I just had to get back to Cairns. So once I was in Cairns, I got 2 new fuel filters, replaced them out in the caravan park there. And then I think that sort of freshened them both up. So when we pulled them out, we cut open, like you can see the factory one, which is so the fuel hits the aftermarket one I've put in first, and then hits the factory one. The factory one was quite clean, but we cut open the aftermarket one, and honestly, it was horrendous. It was just full of like gunk and like little muddy, sludgy bits, and obviously that it picked up in the water. So my big thing there, this is one of the first things I always say with these modifications for modern diesels: get a second fuel filter. Both those fuel filters were picking up crap. The first one was picking up a heap, and the second one was picking up little bits as well. Without both of those, I'd say up the top of Australia, I would have cooked injectors and fuel pump, and that was going to be one hell of an expensive fix, because you're going to be talking thousands of dollars to get towed back to Cairns or whatever, and thousands of dollars in parts. So my recommendation is get some sort of secondary fuel filter or a water separator kit in your diesel engine. There's a big debate there of whether you put the aftermarket one before or after your factory fuel filter. There's different reasons why. Mine's before. After this experience, I'd potentially have it after. The main reason being that you want your sensor in your factory one to warn you straight away, not be like you're getting warned. So your water goes through your first one, then into your second one, and then you're getting warned right as it's about to go into your engine. I'd rather get warned and then have another protection behind that. The other thing you can do is you can get secondary fuel filters that have a sensor in them, so that's another possibility. Maybe put it first, but get one that has a water sensor in it. I think the other big point to consider there is under warranty. Commonly how it works is if you put it before your factory fuel filter, it won't affect warranty. But if you put it after, there is the potential there to impact warranty. So you just have to have a bit of a workout of what type you want, where you want to put it, but you really need to get a second one in there. Now, last point there is how the water got in. Car's got to go get serviced, so I'm going to get them to check over, because I don't necessarily know if it was water in the fuel or it's got in somewhere, possibly in the breather in the tank. So I'll get that checked over, and yeah, make sure that if it was leaking in somehow, like on those deep crossings in the telly track, that it doesn't get in there again, because we don't want that happening. I feel like I'll be here all day going over all these stories. What else happened? Don't worry, there was plenty more. On the way home, the rear drum brakes started grinding metal to metal. I started hearing them on the way home, which is once again partly my fault. I'd had them checked under normal circumstances, like it looked like 15,000-20,000 Ks for front and rear, but Cape York is far from normal circumstances. The amount of mud and dust and water and everything up there is just insane. And on the PDR, which is the rough corrugated dirt road, there's lots of like dips into little creeks and all that, and you come up to them that fast, like you're going about 80 Ks, and then all of a sudden they're there, so like on the brakes that are full of mud and dust, so they're just like, you're just tearing your brakes apart. So by the time I got home, I'd ruptured front and rear brakes, were all metal to metal. So I'm going to get them replaced, servicing as well. Obviously I'm very limiting the amount of car this drive. I can still braking and stuff, but yeah, brakes aren't that great. So going to have to get full redone front and rear brakes all gone over. The other thing that happened was about halfway home, I went to start the car and it was just completely dead. Jump started it because I just thought, I sort of had a quick look at connections, they looked all right. So I jump started it with my new jump starter thing. But as soon as I jump started the dash on the Christmas tree, the dash on the car lit up like a Christmas tree with all these like warning, like everything's gonna blow up. So I turned it off again, it was just dead again. It had like all these four-wheel drive warnings and everything. So I rang my mate again in Coffs, who owns Navara, you know, the Nissan and Ironman dealer there. He told me to like very closely go over all that battery stuff. So I actually found the positive connection had like lifted up slightly and wasn't quite connecting, which meant things hadn't been charging. It had put like everything ended up low voltage. That's why it wasn't starting. The connection wasn't there properly. So yeah, I fixed all that up and it started all good. I still had all the warning lights and everything. And James just sort of said the amount of chaos that can throw, that a low voltage can throw into the systems in these cars is insane. So once I drove for a few hours and charged everything back up, it was all cleared. It was all good. Yeah, it's just another little stress. I was like, by this point, I was just like, I swear, like, just get me home. Get me out of here. That was the other thing up the Cape. It was a solo trip. Definitely had me on edge, especially with that cracking, and then I'm getting water in the fuel. You're so remote. There's like help and supplies and everything are very limited. You're days without reception. It just puts you on edge. So I definitely reckon next time, way better prepared. Take like spare parts I need. Just because even if I can't put them in, I've got them there with me for someone else to put them in, rather than like trying to get them like flown up there and stuff, which is very expensive and time consuming. And I'll probably go with people next time. Like, you can do it solo, definitely. It just had me a bit on edge. It was a new level. I've done a lot of solo stuff, but being up the Cape was that added level of dauntingness. Anyways, I know I get a heap of people roast me from this video, even though I think honestly all of those were bad luck. Like the water and fuel was just bad luck. The cracking and bearings and stuff are just like, it's just going to happen. As I said, you know, I know people are going to roast me, but I noticed that a lot of these people are people that, you know, they drive their four-wheel drive down to local coffee shop and back and then brag to everyone about how tough it is and how they never break it. Things are going to wear out. Things are going to happen. I feel like it's good to share them and hopefully teach others along the way. I'll leave a comment box at the top if you want to add in, like, you know, should have bought a Hilux, should have bought a Jeep, should have bought a Triton, Navara's a garbage. So then you can just put it, everyone can just put it in one spot, you know, rather than just putting it everywhere. Had a hell of a time up at the Cape. Came back a bit stressed and overwhelmed, but now I've decalmed about all that. I've started editing the videos and going through them a bit and that. I'm already like, wow, that was incredible. What a place, what a trip. Already like thinking maybe I'll start going there more regularly. It's just a hell of a drive. It's about from where I am, you're probably about 3 10-hour days to get to Cairns. From Cairns to Tip and back, we did 10-ish days, which was maybe ideally you probably want 2 weeks. Definitely can do it in 10 days and back. Like, we sort of took it chilled and relaxed the whole way. New camps every night. But yeah, we just wanted to do the coach road and a couple other things on the way back. That was probably the only thing we really missed out on. We did a heap of stuff. Probably the main 3 big ones we did were Creb Track, Telegraph Track, Frenchman's Track. And then, you know, obviously we did all the stuff, made it to the northernmost point of Australia. First time ever there. First time ever going up the Cape, like up there across the Jardine and all that up there. It's just crazy. If people are keen, I'm happy to do a bit more of a detailed run through of maybe just like the Cape in general, you know, time frames of things to do, things to take. This is more about how I broke my car at the Cape. Get ready. I'll put the trailer up now. Series is starting soon. It's going to be a good one. Actually, one more thing before the trailer starts. I just remembered that we have our new hoodies in. These are the last ones we'll be getting this year, this winter. There's not heaps of them. So if you want a hoodie, because the other ones are sold out, now's your last chance. They're new design. They got the TT on the front and on the back. So if you want them, they're now available on the website. Can't believe it. Here we go. We've made it to the old Telegraph Track. Surely it's got to be Australia's most iconic track, if not very close to. Maybe I should have just brought a boat for this track instead. Oh God, help me.
This bridge actually looks messed up. You're gonna have to try and guide me. We need to put wheels here and wheels there. We can't go in there or the car's going through the bridge.
That is, I'm literally barely stomping and it's shaking.
Not feeling great about this here on my own.
How am I looking?
Stop!
Oh wow! Is this kid for real?
That's always a good sign when there's a number for towing at the crossing.
That was absolute madness. Oh, I've never done anything like that before. That was... Yeah, that car right in front of me just drowned. They're now towing it out of there. So yeah, welcome to Nolans Brook. It's very soft in there and it's like about belly button deep. When you have to swim across it, that's when you know it's deep. We are taking it on solo. Well, Kai and I, just the one vehicle. I am quite nervous, anxious, also very excited. It's a track I've seen and heard and watched countless videos of since I got into four-wheel driving 6 years ago, and I can't believe I'm finally here to do it. Here we go.
That was the first thing that happened. It wasn't a major deal, it was just a little bit of... That was the first thing that happened. It wasn't a major deal, it was just a little bit of... That was the first thing that happened. It wasn't a major deal, it was just a little bit of panic there. Now with a new car... With a new car... Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. And the other thing is we never actually ended up getting the spotlights wired before the trip because we didn't have really... The other thing was didn't actually get the spotlights wired up before the trip. So we've had a few things go wrong. Surely we've used up all our bad luck. Now surely... So I won't so much. So you just have to have a bit of sit down. So you just have to have... So you just have...